Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. We are live. It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And through that collaboration last year, part of a team that reached out directly or indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, a solution for someone's problem. Yes, we are back live on the Morning Vibe after a little bit of a sabbatical. We are back live. Sorry for the delayed start. This one, I got a really important phone call and I tried to say, can I call you back? No, they said, no, we need to talk about it now. So it's all done. We're all good. We are back. And took a little bit of a relaxation for a few days, and we are back better than ever. Since we're broadcasting on Friday, Ryan will be with us at the bottom of the hour. We were scheduled to have a guest, but they haven't heard anything from them, so I hope that they're okay. If they do come in during the conversation, we'll just slide them in. So a little bit of an open mic time, or just wanted to know what's going on in your world, or I can just put it out there in regards to different conversation topics. Actually, here in Canada today, it's National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and it's in honor of our Indigenous people in this country. So many things. Federal government offices are closed, so no banks are open, no post office, and it's interesting. I get various emails in my email box, and someone sent something today about the truth and reconciliation. And I want to read just a bit about it to just have a little thought process in regards to what this day is all about, and should not only just be this day, but continuing forward. So I'm just going to read a bit of this email. So what can we do? This person says, what can we do as Canadian citizens to honor and reflect on the country's troubling history with Indigenous people? It begins with research to uncover the facts. Whether you want to read, listen, watch, please start your learning journey today. We must fully open our eyes and ears to the abusive history of mistreatment, oppression, and inequality towards Indigenous peoples in this country. This history continues today and is found in many forms. The way we ignore their needs and their right to self-govern and live as a prosperous and thriving people. We cannot ask for forgiveness, reconciliation, until we have listened to the whole story, the truth, until we have come to understand the way of life, culture, traditions, the whole history. The message is clear that we must engage in thoughtful, honorable dialogue together if we want to improve their quality of life in Canada. There is still a very long way to go. We could learn so much from the ways of the First Nations people to teach us how to be better steward the land we live on, our water, rivers, and habitat, and how to honor and respect a culture and a people different from our own. The Indigenous worldview is based on interconnectivity between people and nature, health and happiness, and is achieved by living a life in balance with nature. The colonizers wanted to obliterate, stealing land, kidnapping the children, and outlawing the sacred ceremonies. We must look back to the traditional ways to find a new way forward. So that is what I wanted to share with you, on the Truth and Reconciliations Day. I don't know what you have to say about it, what comments that you have, but definitely if you have anything, certainly put them in the comments. Just want to shout out people. So yeah, we are back. We are back, and Ryan will be with us in just a little bit. And we were supposed to have a scheduled guest. They didn't show up. But good morning to everyone. And hey, why don't you put in the comments section or the wherever you are, where you're from, and hello, and what's on your mind and heart. Another thing that went down while we were taking a little sabbatical, this whole issue of the coach of the Boston Celtics. Did anyone see or know about this story? It is quite the interesting story. So let me just see if I can pull it up here. All right. So let's see if we can pull it up. Yeah. So the coach of the Boston Celtics, Ime Udoka, has been suspended for a whole year by his team, the Boston Celtics. Now, a little background: Mr. Udoka was the first-year coach of the Boston Celtics of the NBA, and there was a month-long investigation. Good morning, FitNance IQ Cam. How are you this morning? Thanks for stopping by. So getting back, there was a month-long investigation of him, and he was having a consensual affair with, I believe from what I heard, a lady who is either the wife or dating one of the vice presidents of the Celtics. So, not very. And it was and now he has been suspended for 1 year. And there's been a lot of talk about this. There's one side saying, well, yeah, it's deserved in suspension. Then there's another side saying, well, hold on a second. There's a lot of people having affairs in the NBA. Why should he get suspended for a whole year? Now, apparently it's team policy with the Celtics that anyone who is having an affair with an employee, whole suspension. But a lot of people are saying, well, a number of people saying, like, hold on a second. Why him? And a number of people in the media say, okay, this got to be more than this, because a consensual relationship, suspension for a year. Because I'm sure there are other people where a number of people are saying there are a number of people having consensual relationships, aka affairs, in the NBA, and they're not being suspended. So interesting perspective in regards to that story on what's going on. What are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on, is 1 year justified? Now, the team has not said if they're going to hire him back after the 1 year suspension. That'll be another interesting part of it. And then for people who, I'll be back here. So for people who live in Toronto, just in the last little over 12 hours, one of the most powerful politicians in Toronto, a gentleman named Michael Thompson, who actually is a representative in the riding that I live in, he has been charged by two women in alleged sexual assault. And that was going, wow, because he is the deputy mayor of Toronto. A number of years ago, was the Pan Am Games come to Toronto, and he was one of the major driving forces in having the Pan Am Games of Toronto. And I was doing some research last night on Michael Thompson, and since 2003, he's the only Black individual that has sat on Toronto City Council. The only Black individual. So get that through. He's the only Black individual that has sat on Toronto City Council. So a lot of people hear about Toronto, how multicultural this and that it is. We've only had one Black person sit on our city council since, I think, well, I don't know if he's maybe the first. I don't know if he's the first or not. But since 2003, he's been the only Black person sitting on Toronto City Council. Now, he does a lot of power. He does sit, I think he used to, or does sit on the Toronto Police Services Board. And interesting, we have municipal elections coming up here in Toronto. And about 2 months ago, Michael Thompson was asked, if John Tory, who is the current mayor, running thing for his fourth term now, if Mr. Tory did not run, would he take a shot at running? And he said, yeah, he'd consider it. So, being a Black man, especially in the world of politics, you really got to watch your back. well, being a black man, period, you got to watch your back. But in the area of politics, and this is where it's interesting. You compare, the Barack Obama was president of the United States for 8 years. No sexual scandals. Very there were some political scandals, yes, but he kept his reign pretty clean. You're not hearing too many derogatory things about his behavior. It seems a lot of what was outward that we saw was pretty much the same inward, or we would have probably heard about it some way, somehow. So those are some of the things that are going on in my world, some of the things that I was paying attention to during our break. What's going on in your Legend Mind? Any topics you want to chat about? We're having basically an open mic. We're back after a little hiatus. Any subjects that are going on in your world? For people who are sports people, why am I forgetting Aaron? Oh man, I'm forgetting the guy who hit the home runs in Toronto, 61 home runs. So Donna asked, so let me just put some things up. Morning, just put it to fitness cam. There's also, is the vice president's wife an employee? That's a good question. I don't think so. I know she performs a lot of duties, but I don't think he's an employee. But that's a really good question. When Ryan comes on, I'm going to just do I'll check, let me just do a quick Google search for you and see if that is true. His wife and I'm just Googling that to see if I can answer your question rather quickly, Donna. I don't. From what I see right now, she's not an employee. No, the quick research I've done here, I'm just doing quick research. I don't think she's regarded as an employee. All right. Good morning, Tim Frey. Hope you're doing fine. Oh, our guest is here. He has landed. He's in his car. So I will bring him on right now. Greetings. Grand rising.
It's the same to you, brother. How are you? I was having trouble getting in for some reason because I'm not a Safari guy, but it's all good.
No problem.
I figured it out.
Good stuff. So we have Farley. For those who have watched the program for a little bit, you know the name, you know the face, you know the voice, you know the... Oh, we lost him for a second here. Okay, we will take... Oh, he's back. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Good. How are things going with yourself?
Things are fantastic, actually. How are you?
Blessed, highly favored, magnet for miracles, solution for someone's problem, and Blackalicious.
Okay. There's some subjective matter in that response, but that's all good.
That's all right. Okay, no problem. So I know your time is limited, let's say, so we're gonna get right at it. So we're always like having you on the program, whether it's in our comments section or live, and you're gonna chat and share with us today about the Student, Family, and Advocate program. And I know probably indirectly when you've been live, you've mentioned it, but now you're going to really zoom in on it today. So can you give a little background about this organization?
Absolutely. So SFA, Student Family Advocates, is a funded program. It consists of approximately 17 organizations that serve as literally, as the name indicates, as student family advocates for Black families and students who... And it's a spectrum of services, but essentially we advocate when there's issues of anti-Black racism or indications thereof or incidents thereof, what have you. We always are there for families. And it's an interesting space to work within because because of the normalcy of anti-Black racism, there are many Black families and students who are not even aware that they're being racialized in the education system. And then there are others who have actual incidents that acutely can be described as anti-Black racism. So there's a full spectrum of awareness which is partially why we're doing our best to get into the media, such as this platform, to ensure that Black families are aware that there is a support system. And this ranges, as I said, everywhere from you know working with the families to empower them to take action when such circumstances exist, all the way to working with which is the legal support system that we have for if situations escalate to that point of needing to be addressed at that level.
How did this organization come about? Because it's not easy getting a whole pile of organizations together. What Give us some of the background on how it became a living, breathing thing.
Well, I'll say somewhat comically that when funding is announced, it's a lot easier to find our community than when it's not announced. Okay, so 17
Okay.
organizations or more, I assume even more than that, applied for the funding. 17 were awarded. We have as I guess you could say our project lead is parents of Black children who've been doing a phenomenal job in managing and facilitating the consortium, if you will. As with anything, when a group of really powerful minded people and I encourage opinion, as you know, I encourage people to be opinionated, come together, not everything is going to be ironed out smoothly in the first run, but we're working on being a collective to the extent that we can, although we have different operational methodologies and things like that, but the end goal is common, and that is to ensure that our Black children and families are not subject to any aspect of disparity, inequity, or whatever it may be as it relates to anti-Black racism.
Excellent. Some people may be aware, some people not be aware because I have a global audience. What are some of the challenges that these organizations are hearing from Black parents when it comes to the school system?
Okay, so while all the applicable terminologies associated with anti-Black racism are applicable here, from microaggressions to unconscious bias to conscious bias to overt racist treatment of Black students, it's the entire spectrum of what anti-Black racism is defined as absolutely exists in the education system. And that's why we call it systemic racism, because most of the systems in this country and others throughout the diaspora did not have us in mind when they were at this stage of inception. Education wasn't meant for Black people, right? Education was meant for the people who resided in that particular region. We just happened, obviously, by virtue of the transatlantic slave trade and colonization, to be here. And then in the whole sort of multi-intergenerational assimilation process, we've been integrated into the education system. But remember, we were not meant to be educated in the first place, right? Educated, from a Western standpoint, and from a white community standpoint. So anyone who lives outside of this region would be able to identify if they are in a community where it's not, and even countries, quite frankly, where there is a critical mass of people of African descent. Anti-Black racism is so indoctrinated into the slavery experience and colonization that it does exist in places like, you'd say Jamaica wouldn't have that, but yeah, they actually do. But here in Canada, and specifically in Ontario and Southern Ontario, we know that there is a critical mass of people of African descent, and there's a critical issue with the treatment of Black students. And I'm talking from the pre-kindergarten stage, from daycare right on up. So it's not something that just magically happens in grade 9, right? These issues are transpiring at the earliest stages of the education process, and we address them. We had an issue with a 4-year-old boy, for instance. We've had issues with 8-year-olds, and have issues with folks who are at the college university level.
Wow. Wow. What role are parents playing in this? Like, is part of what this collective does is educate parents also in regards to what they should be looking for when it comes to the school system and some of its actions?
100%. That's a great question. And I'll preface my response by saying that the role of parents is critical. We are the ones responsible for how prepared our children are to go into the school system, not just academically, but socially, right? So I'm an ardent proponent.
Okay, so we've lost Farley for a second. I'm speaking. We're going to get him back,
Can you
but
hear me?
yeah, We're good.
Okay,
Go
great.
ahead.
Sorry about that. I'm an advocate, proponent, ardent proponent, I should say, of parents being involved in their child's pre-education education, if you will. So going to school, knowing your alphabet, being able to count to 100, knowing your basic life skills from a social standpoint, conflict resolution. All these things are things that can be taught before your child steps foot on that school bus or into the school, and that's the accountability side on our part. But that said, parents also need to ensure that they stay involved and that recognize the school, especially in a racist system, is not a third parent. You are the parents, we are the parents, and we have to maintain that role in an interactive and proactive way throughout the life of our children's education. That's a must to me. There's no compromise there. Those of us who come from the Caribbean bus stop on the way from Africa, we grow up thinking that the school is going to raise our kids to some extent. Obviously, they have some influence, but at the end of the day, they leave our homes and they return to our homes. Therefore, we have to have an active involvement and responsibility. And that will make our children much more resilient to anti-Black racism, no matter where you live. So that's really my perspective on that. Now, I'll also qualify my comments to say that they're very much Farley Flex Nuibo comments, right? They may not reflect the entire consortium, but I think from a 40,000 foot level, they certainly should.
What when these organizations, when you share with parents these things, are parents telling you any of the things that are preventing them from being more engaged with their kids when it comes to the school system?
Absolutely. Dismissiveness being one of them. When the parent has an issue and tries to address it, oftentimes they're brushed to the side. Oh, this happens all the time. Oh, not to worry about it. Da 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 da. And there's a lot of minimization and discounting of concern, right, and ultimately of individuals. The communication between school and families is not all that it needs to be, and that's why, again, I'll reinforce, we got to pick up the ball and make certain demands. But the more we do it collectively, right, which is the word you always hear me use, the more we act collectively, which is why I'm so proud to be part of the SFA. My business partner Roderick and I, we recognize the power of collaboration, right? As do the other organizations in the consortium. So what parents are telling us is that, if their child, for instance, there's circumstances where students write an A paper and get a B minus, and because of the norm of what Black students may be getting, that's seen as a great achievement. But that if that child deserves an A plus, they should get an A plus. I heard a really sad story actually just last week, Dr. Vibe, from a young man who partnered on a project he's Black, the other partner is not Black. They handed in independent aspects of a joint project, and the Black student got an F, and the white student got an A on the same submission.
Wow.
So when I hear things like this, my whole thing is, as much of an anarchist as people might think I am, we need our own schools, right?
Well,
Because yeah, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And forgive my perspiration. I was actually at the gym when I was trying to get on, and
no problem.
I'm still a little warm.
It's okay.
But anyway, yeah. So these egregious sort of circumstances have to be addressed, and as much as we want to work with government, we can't consider it a partnership until everybody comes to the table with the common intent, long-term goals and intents. Otherwise, we have to make sure that we think at least from an autonomous Black community perspective, and get our ducks in a row so that we always have the ammunition, if you will, for any circumstance that requires advocacy.
Excellent. Just want to say good day to Divine Wright, who's based in the DMV, Washington, Maryland, Virginia area. As always, a great supporter. And got a question from our community, our family. Do you think unconscious bias is really unconscious bias, or is it rhetoric to hide Black supremacy?
So my response to that is unconscious bias does in fact exist. And the reason I say it exists is because many people are born into an ideology. and they learn it vicariously through parenting, siblingship, whatever it may be, and they carry out these behaviors without even being aware that they're guilty of them. So that's why education is key, and proper training of all educators. Anybody who's in contact with our children, right, needs to be educated on anti-Black racism. I'm a major proponent, again, for anti-Black racism training in community centers, schools, churches, wherever it may be. Like, if we are going to remain here and define and pay taxes as Canadian citizens, people need to understand that these things exist. Right now, there may be outlier circumstances, or maybe even somewhat prevalent circumstances, where people hide behind the definition of unbiased, or unconscious bias, I should say. And that may exist. So I wouldn't discount that it exists. But I do know that there are many people, as someone who played sports my entire life, I've had many friends of different cultures who unconsciously offer biases in whether it be my direction or another player's direction, who's not, could be even a South Asian person, right? And they're not, I guess, overtly aware, because it's their norm, right? So what we have to do is disrupt the norm with disruptive anti-Black racism training.
Well, I always remember one of the first times you were on our platform, you talked about filling the gaps.
Absolutely.
Using that analogy, the gaps analogy. Okay, so what can the system do to fill the gaps, and what should we be doing to fill the gaps?
I love that you included both sides of the equation, because that's one of the things I want to make sure we always do. We cannot leave the sense of accountability on the side, off the table, right? But I'll start with the system. The system has to ensure that they're hiring and empowering people who are indoctrinated into the concept of anti-Black racism as something that cannot exist in this country, right? And that's through training. That's through accountability and some form of consequence when anti-Black racism rears its head by an educator or even systemically. If that person, let's say hypothetically a teacher demonstrates an anti-Black racist decision or action in a classroom, and that goes unaddressed, then the person next in line, let's say a vice principal, should be held equally as accountable. And if that happens, the principal should then be the next person that's held accountable. And if that happens, the superintendent should then be held accountable. And then it usually goes to like a trusteeship or something of that nature, a trustee, and who are elected officials, by the way. So folks, make sure you communicate with your trustee. Don't be apathetic from the standpoint of your political awareness, and recognize that your vote actually counts. So, and again, politicians only react to people who vote. If you don't vote, you don't get a quote.
Well, if I can just politely interrupt and say, sure, municipal elections are coming, right? And people have to realize the area that affects most of us daily lives are municipal people, trustees, school board trustees, aldermen, all that. Those are the people that have the most impact on our daily lives, especially, the Canadian aspect. Those are the people that impact our lives the most. Farley, I want to ask also, you had mentioned something before we get to what we can do. Are there processes in place like the one you just mentioned if an incident happens, and who monitors these processes? Do we get input to improve these processes? Are they in place?
Yeah, so that's a great question as well, Dr. Vibe. So there are processes in place, and there are documents and processes that are supposed to be followed. But if the person who is the plaintiff, let's say, has no idea that these things exist, it's easy for them to get swept under the rug in the ignorance of not knowing, right? So what we have to do is ensure, as one of the things SFA does, is make sure that the information is available to families so they understand and can appreciate what the next steps are. And if they don't, they can call us. That's the key. They can reach out to us. They can ask anyone, what are the bodies, because we may not be the only ones, what are the bodies of support that are available, mechanisms of support that are available if I have such an incident that I want to deal with. But yeah, I think it's safest to assume there is always a process, a policy in place. And if the policy does not exist, then that's what Student Family Advocacy and our network, our collective network, which reaches into the political system and the self-advocacy organizations that represent Black people in general should and can all come together to address these issues to ensure policy change is imminent. Everybody you vote for should have a measure of influence and support for what you are fairly demanding. I'm not even going to say asking for, demanding, because fairness should be demanded, not asked for. I can't hear you for some reason.
What sort of support or what sort of attention are you getting from school board and government representatives, your organization? Are they taking you seriously?
Yeah,
In your opinion?
I would say we're being taken seriously, but I don't think we're there yet. I think it's consistency. I'm hoping that the funding obviously is renewed so that we can sustain the program ad infinitum, quite frankly, because anti-Black racism is not going to disappear in 2025. Like, like, let's be real. So we need to have either a consistent source of funding or a hybrid scenario where we're generating our own funding as well, which again fosters more autonomy, right? So that we can pay for the work that's being done on behalf of families. So I would say to you that the number one measure is consistency over time. Practice makes permanence, right? We have to continually to practice this measure of advocacy long term, so we become a household name in every family, every household that needs our support or may need our support.
So Divine Right from the DMV is saying, yes, spot on. Down here, it's our school board and we have city council members. Unfortunately, our superintendent resigned in June, our first Black man. And when I say he came up against so much racism. So do you have conversations with people who look like us, who are involved in the school system? How much of a challenge are they facing in order to advance anti-Black racism in the school system? Have you had any of those conversations?
Yeah, even if we don't have the conversations, we introduce the conversation. That's the proactive nature of what we do. So I'll give you an example close to home for Urban Res Solutions. We have programs in schools where they're not necessarily under the SFA banner, but we integrate SFA into the narrative. You see what I'm saying? So if we work with students on student success, we will introduce the idea of self-advocacy through some of our other programs because we want to integrate the knowledge and make it as comprehensive and wraparound as possible. So the conversations we're having are when students could then say, yeah, my teacher, I worked on this paper and I checked my work, and I don't think I got the mark I deserved. And listen to this statement here. And I've said this for a number of years now. Anytime there's any measure of concern involving a Black student or Black person, I'll say it even broader, Black person, then anti-Black racism has to be one of the considerations for the cause of that issue. It's not a sidebar conversation. It's the parallel I would give you is when a woman goes missing, the police automatically, who's her boyfriend? That's a default approach that they take to investigation, right? The same thing needs to happen with anti-Black racism. If there's a disparity or a concern with equitable treatment or anything of that nature, we need to have on the list of possibilities that anti-Black racism may have a contribution to that outcome. And if we can lobby enough to make that a status quo understanding, Dr. Vibe, then we'll be making headway in the right direction.
Nice. Very, very true. Let's flip it on to what does the Black environment need to do to advance this?
Okay, so as I said earlier, I think preparing our children for success, right? That starts from the time they're in the womb, not even post-birth. This starts in the womb. Like I know in my family, it's consistent, reading to a child in the womb, singing to a child in the womb, loving a child before you can actually see a child, right? All these things, there's a lot of things that contribute to barriers, poverty being a major, major factor in terms of the barrier to loving in a holistic way. But at the end of the day, right, once that child enters this universe, right, we have to ensure success relative to the environment that we're in. right? And beyond. So I think that parental accountability is key. Student accountability is key. You have to be able to recognize what the difference between a friend and an acquaintance. An acquaintance might tell you, let's go smoke a blunt before the exam, right? A friend would say, no, that's not going to work for you. Let's study. Like if when your friends say, let's go to the mall or let's play 2K or whatever it may be, 2 days before an exam that you're struggling to do well in a class and somebody's distracting you away from doing better, that's not a friend. That's an acquaintance or less, right? Friends are individuals who care about your success. Nothing short of that. So I say on the accountability side for the community, we also need a more collaboration amongst parents, because parenting is a variable term. Some people have the capacity to parent extremely well. Some people don't. The ones who parent extremely well need to recognize that our children in our home are not the only children we should care about. We should be sharing and caring for our neighbors, right? All these things are African principles that have been removed from our DNA through slavery and colonization. The whole phrase of "it takes a village to raise a child" is not just an idiom. It's an actual fact, right? So we need to work collaboratively. If you know of a neighbor whose sons or daughter seems to be excelling in school, find out what they did to get where they are and do exactly what they do. That's a Michael Lee Chin quote, right? Find out what people who are achieving are doing and do exactly what they do, and your likelihood of achieving is going to increase.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, I was told you have to get off at a certain
No, I'm
time.
actually good. The meeting I had actually was canceled. The person's not feeling well, so
Okay.
you
All
have
right.
me for more time than you'd like me to have.
It's all good. It's all good. I just want to make sure, because I value everyone's time, because time is the most valuable thing we've got. So
Likewise.
just wanted to make sure we're okay. We got here Divine Right saying sometimes we have to remind these folks who we voted in that we are sending in concerns and not getting a response. It is their obligation and their job to respond to the greater community.
Yeah, and we need to know these things before we sign the voting card, right? And then again, you cannot lay back and hope people do what you want done. You have to be involved in the process. You're either going to be, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Remember
Exactly.
that. So if you know somebody's running for office, find out what their ideals are. Find out which things align with your ideals. Talk to friends and say, I spoke to the candidate, Dr. Vibe, who's running for trustee, and he said something really profound that I totally agree with. What do you guys think? Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. I don't agree with that. And create a momentum for voting, right? Other cultures have an indoctrinated understanding of who they're going to vote for before the election even comes.
Yep.
We are a little bit latent sometimes in getting involved at that level, right? We need to know what our trustees, our MPPs, our MPs, et cetera, stand for, because as you said, they're the ones who have the closest impact on our day-to-day lives.
Absolutely.
Right? You can't sit back in the cut waiting for the miracles to come your way. Doesn't work.
I'm going to put a statement out here, and correct me if I'm wrong. You and I were probably raised the same sort of way.
Okay, that's a safe assumption.
You know, like my dad said, I don't care what you do in life as long as you have manners and respect.
Gotcha.
Right? Were the ways that we were raised outdated in regards to education, etc.? Like my dad said to me before, I'll give you an interesting story. When I graduated from junior high school, I was given a proficiency award by the Ontario Minister of Education at that time.
Okay.
Come off the stage, go to my dad. The first thing my dad said, he didn't say congratulations. He said, "You're going to university."
Beautiful.
And I said, "Dad, I haven't stepped even to high school yet." But he had that vision.
Absolutely.
Have we lost that sort of vision that our parents had for us?
I'm not sure I'd say we've lost the vision, because I do know many parents who subscribe to that approach.
Yes.
to succession planning, quite frankly. Yes. I knew I grew up in an environment where education was a must. Education was recognized and indoctrinated into our mindsets very, very early in the conversation around what are you going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and what does it take to become that? We knew that very, very early in our upbringing. What my concern is now, though, is that there are mechanisms out there that, as parents, when we get preoccupied with financial, and there's poverty, and then there's another level of preoccupation with financial gain, right? Poverty is a reality. It impacts the human rights side of things. But when we get to that point of gainful employment and we just want more and more and more and more, and it comes in the form of, with great respect to fashion, $450 pairs of Yeezys and things like that, at the expense of quality time with the family. And I'm not saying anyone does that. I'm saying if it happens, that is not conducive, right? Without some form of regiment for educational attainment. Educational attainment is not just in the classroom. It's in the kitchen. It's in the living room. It's in the car, on the way to school, on the way to the visit family. Education is all the time. Parents sharing with their children everything that they know, right? So the child has more knowledge to apply as a tool as they navigate this thing called life. So I would say that the distinction now with the internet, for instance, if your child is in their bedroom, let's say I'm going to put this in quotations, doing homework, but they're actually on YouTube watching, whatever, on Instagram, or God forbid, something more impactful on their psyche, instead of doing the work that's required for school. And if you don't know your children's teachers' names and what your child is working towards becoming, et cetera, I'll say check yourself before you wreck yourself. You have to be in your child's life, right? I was given a slap on the hand at a well-known school board a couple of years ago when I did a little practice game to test parents on how well they knew their children's ambitions. And it was a colossal failure in our community, to be honest, right? And again, this is not to represent the entire community, but it did happen. It's fact, right? And I was admonished, or attempted to be admonished for embarrassing parents, but that wasn't my objective. My objective was to pinch everyone, give them a nudge that you need to know what's going on in your child's life, so that you can facilitate it, not direct it, but facilitate it. If your child says, I want to be a plumber, cognitive recognition is going to, whether you like it or not, involuntarily help you recognize when opportunities for plumbers are posted on a wall somewhere, or a radio commercial comes on, or TV commercial comes on that relates to plumbing. You're going to be more aware of it because your loved one said that they're interested in it. So these are all little basic things that we have to really look at in terms of the difference in old parenting styles. Maybe, I don't know if it's old, new necessarily, it's just straight up parenting style. You have to be involved in your child's life.
The school should not be raising your kid.
Heck no. Neither should their friends. And their friends should be raising your children's friends should not be raising them.
Absolutely. Some more comments from the family here. Black Business Eye says we need to speak life and positive statements into our children. Divine Right is saying amen on accountability and more collaboration from parents, whether they are your children or not. We need to be the village. And you know what's interesting? More and more I hear non-melanated people talking about it takes a village.
Oh yeah, well, I hear a lot of non-melanated people rapping too.
Exactly. Exactly. Donna is saying, can we touch a bit about intergenerational and environmental trauma and its relationship on how we thrive in society? Good point. Farley?
Great point. So we are an unhealed people. At the end of the day, we are an unhealed people, similar to our indigenous brothers and sisters. Intergenerational trauma from the transatlantic slave trade has never been addressed in a holistic manner. The trauma exists, it's being passed on intergenerationally. It sets us back from the starting line, right? And that's why I'm saying it's imperative that we do everything in our power to get to the starting line on an even playing field. And I'm sure many of you have seen the video on YouTube when the high school teacher lines up everybody on the goal line of a soccer field or football field and asks them specific questions pertaining to privilege, and the kids who respond favorably get to take a step ahead, and the kids who can't even relate to the question stay where they are. And at the end of the exercise, all the Black and some Latino students were still at the goal line, while their non-melanated counterparts and other students were almost 1/3 of the way up the field before the race started. So addressing intergenerational trauma and drilling down involves self-care, seeking care and therapy and support and camaraderie and collective discussions with other people who are suffering from the same aspect of trauma. We mask our trauma with materialism. We mask it with sexuality. We mask it with music and lyrics. We mask it with violence. We mask it with all these things. But at the end of the day, as my good friend Tor Denham Jolly says, you have to look at the raw underbelly of the matter and understand what is there, what is causing it. And it is intergenerational trauma resulting from egregious experiences, courtesy of the transatlantic slave trade and colonization. Right. And I think that point, Donna, thank you for raising that, because it's critically relevant. And we have to recognize, in order to heal, you have to recognize what is ailing you. Right. And once we recognize what's ailing us as a collective, again, I've said the word several times, as a collective, we have to recognize what we have in common beyond our skin. It's the trauma of as descendants of slavery, as victims of colonization, as consistent, unrelenting anti-Black racism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know what the causes are. We know what the assaults are. We know what has injured us and what continues to injure us, but we're not collectively seeking a mechanism for healing. And in as much as there are 17 organizations on SFA, there should be 177.
Question for you then, Farley, our conversation piece. Should anti-Black racism be a consistent program in our school systems? Not like the Black History Month, the consistent programming.
You heard what I said earlier. Here's my vision for anti-Black racism training in the schools, in the recreation centers, in the libraries, anywhere that this wonderfully diverse community frequents from a high traffic standpoint. There needs to be reminders that there are groups of people who are being treated unfairly. Indigenous and Black people, in whichever order you choose, right, being on every single list that I would mention, right? So if you're from Scotland or where have you, great respect, right, to your sense of cultural identity. But when we interact with people of difference, we have to understand that human beings are equal. Every single human being on this planet is equal, and that the distinction between equality and equity, you've heard me say this before, Dr. Vibe, equality is when everyone has shoes. Equity is when everyone has shoes that fit them.
Well put. How would it impact if we had more Black people in the education system?
Well, I'll give you a quick example. There's a French only school in Durham, and I'm not compromising anyway by saying the name, called oh geez, now I forgot it. Anyway, I'll get it in a second. But they have approximately, I would say, a 97% Black teacher population to complement a 97% Black student population. They've graduated their grade 12s onto post-secondary or the trades at 100% for 8 years straight. So need I say more?
Nope, not at all. Not at all. And that warms my heart, because I don't know if you know or not, my dad was a public school educator for 38 years in the same school.
I knew that, yeah.
So that is very, very strong in regards to that statement. That proof is in the pudding, especially when it comes to having Black male educators.
Yep, because we know that the issues seem to... It's necessarily more or less, because our sisters also are facing tremendous challenges in terms of their sense of identity. And that's to me what's most critical. We don't have a sense of identity because we've been sterilized, literally, psychologically and socially sterilized by the experiences we've undergone, again, through slavery and colonization. So I would say that it's important that students see individuals who care about them just by virtue of being of the same race. And it's not separatist or segregationalist. What it is, it's about recognizing an inequity and a disparity in society that needs to be filled with a specific strategy in mind. And the best thing for someone to aspire to is someone they can relate to, right? And that relationship is critical in the process of achievement, right? You know, if two people like soccer and one is an amazing player and one is developing, working with someone who is amazing is going to make you better. So if two students, if a student and the teacher have a relationship and the teacher can relate to their circumstance culturally, ethnically, whatever terminology folks would like to use, right? That's going to be more of a beeline to inspiration and success than having a dotted line or some line that's breaking at every grade.
Excellent. Divine Right from the DMV saying, yes, we need to know everyone who's in our kids' lives, from the cafeteria workers, security, teachers, after school, and be a team with folks. I know everyone from the front. She knows everyone from the front office up herself. So she's very proactive on that.
I love that. And that's a great point, Divine, right? One of the things that I'm a major advocate for as well, we need supplementary education for our kids. The school boards weren't designed for us, number one, as I said earlier, and are still not catering to the needs that we have from a cultural, psychocultural, you know, ethnocultural standpoint. Right, we need to have supplementary, whether it be after school. I think it should be after school and Saturday school, quite frankly, because if you're in a race, whether you look at it metaphorically as the human race or a foot race, either way, you cannot be behind and run at the same pace expecting to catch up. You have to increase your stride or increase your turnover speed in order to catch up to the thing ahead of you. You cannot stay the same and say, oh, the school boards will figure it out for us eventually, right? SFA is one spoke in that wheel, right? There are a bunch of other spokes that make that wheel turn, right? So we need to have Saturday school. And when I say Saturday school, I'm talking about accessible to every Black student in every quadrant of this city and of the diaspora, if we speak on larger terms. We have to complement and supplement what the colonizer has made available to us. If somebody gives you poison, you don't ask for another cup, right?
Nope.
You find an antidote.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And the antidote for education is to catch up in our own context and own definition of what education is supposed to mean. English, great language, but it's not our language. It should be our second language. You know how I feel about the names, as you can see on my name there. I've already changed my name. That has been an injection of psychological steroids that you could not imagine for me, my brother. And it takes me closer to my identity. Our children have no sense of identity as Africans, right? That's why I love Afrobeat music. It's teaching our kids. But where's the parental component and the educational component and the athletic component about who we are as a people? We still do not yet know who we are. And if we lose sight of the importance of that, I think it's going to be a greater challenge to succeed en masse, collectively, as a people.
Okay, good stuff. Some catch-up comments here. Yes, we need to collectively heal and not shy away from the mental and emotional health services. Divine Right again says, my son receives special education services and he's in 5th grade. This year, he has his first Black male special education teacher. He's been getting services since he was 3.
Beautiful.
She also says we need more Black educators, especially at the elementary school level. We don't see many at that level of schooling out there. Quick little story. When I had hair, I actually applied twice to become a public schools teacher. The first time I didn't get in, the other time was on a waiting list. And the same thing that was said many years ago, I'm still hearing today. We don't have enough Black male educators. Now, that's a whole other conversation itself, and I think we need to do a show on Black male educators. I think that's an important conversation. But something tells inside me there's a systemic pushback for that to happen. Something tells me that. I don't know, but I just feel that. Earl Anderson has a question. What are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Can I share a quick thought on your point?
Yeah.
This is what I would advise.
if we don't have enough black male or black educators in the system, right? How many people are willing to stand up now and say, I will do an after school program or become part of one as an educator? I will wake up on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. to be at a program at 9 a.m. to further educate the children that need me. Who is willing to say that, right? And do not say it, do it. Who's willing to do it? And because we don't need to be hired by somebody to care for our children.
We don't
We
need
need to care.
permission.
We just
don't
need
need
to care for our
permission.
children.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't need permission or commission. We need to say that we are committed to one another to do it. And that's the key right there, right? Because so saying that the reason I don't teach black students is because I tried to get in that, not saying your comment, I'm just saying in general, right? Because I tried to get into TDSB and I couldn't get in. Look, listen, man, like a lot of people don't know this. I applied for Toronto Police Services and got in and turned down the gig. Because I was
same
because
here. I was courted by Toronto Police Service and I turned it down.
Right, but I still police my community in a culturally sensitive way. You can ask hundreds of kids that, and they'll tell you, right? But I serve and protect in my definition of those two words, not what's become the definition.
Create your own. Create your own. Don't. Yep, I love it. Black Business Live says loves that idea that challenging people to start something on their own. Don't get the approval. Start your own. Earl Anderson has a question. What are your thoughts on omniculturalism?
Omniculturalism, similar to, I tell people all the time, I spell BIPOC with a capital B, capital I, lowercase POC. And I'm not, it's not a competition for race, but what I'm saying is we cannot be put in a basket when we have such unique negative experiences as Black and Indigenous people. Our situation is different. It's more egregiously, there are more egregious acts that were practiced on our bodies, our minds, our the list goes on and on till the break of dawn, right? So you could put me in a BIPOC basket all you like, but I'm going to be the biggest B in that basket, because I know that the things that we're facing in this hemisphere as Black people cannot be aligned with other groups who jump in that basket with us, right? With the exception of our Indigenous brothers and sisters. And again, we have to stand up and say these things publicly, right? Not just privately. Like, I'm not sure who's on this. I never know who's on listening to this, and I don't really care, quite frankly, in a respectful way. I want everyone to hear what I believe, whether I'm right or wrong.
There you go. There you go. So unless there's any more comments, we're going to start winding it down. Farley is always so gracious giving time to us. If you're watching this live on replay, I've actually put the website, the face of the website, what it looks like on the screen. So when you go to that website address, this is what you're going to see. I'm going to scroll down a little bit and show the different things: the advocacy, the accountability, the transformational change. Video there. Questions.
Yeah.
Why you should.
Very comprehensive information. Again, kudos to all the organizations that are part of the SFA, POBC for taking leadership.
I'm going to show them all here and list them. Britannia Woods Community House, Center for Resilience and Social Development, the Delta Family Resource Center, Durham Family and Cultural Center, Early Childhood Development Initiative, Empowered Squad for Youth Initiative, HM Youth Foundation, Malvern Family Resource Center, Markham African Caribbean Canadian Association, Mindiata Community Services, Parents of Black Children Canada, Patches 360 Inc., Roots Community Services, Success Beyond Limits Education Program, some organization called Urban Res Solutions, never heard of them before, Women in Health in Women's
You might want to backtrack there, brother. You might want to backtrack and readdress that last comment.
I'm just joking. I'm playing with you there. But I wanted people to visually see how all these organizations have come together. And Farley's put out there saying there should be more. It shouldn't be just 17.
Absolutely.
It should be more. If we care about the future of our people, I'd like to see more organizations out there. More organizations listed, because we all allegedly care about our future, with the future's with our kids. Simple as that. Future's with our kids. Okay. Well, that is it, my man. And Black Business Live saying thanks, Kings. Appreciate it. Always taken for granted. Any closing thoughts for us today, Farley?
My closing thoughts would be, please take all children's, not just your own, education seriously. Remember, education is a must. School is an option. You don't have school. Children are not educated only in school. They should be educated at home, on the playing field, in after-school programs, Saturday school programs. Every opportunity of human interaction is an opportunity to learn. And if we can indoctrinate that understanding in our children and ourselves, right? Remember that if you're not able to advocate for yourself, there are advocacy groups like ours that are available to support you and for you to actually not just receive support, but get involved. Because once you've been victimized by the system, you become a subject matter expert. And we need your knowledge. We need your insight. We need to know how you felt.
Okay, Farley is frozen for a moment. Oh, I don't know if we've lost him. Okay. Let's just be patient here, see if we can get Farley back. He was just doing some powerful closing comments.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm back.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, that was an incoming call disruptive. So anyway, so in a nutshell, that's what I would leave with folks. There is support out there. We are there, and there are other organizations as well, but we are here, and we're on this call, on this show today, to let you know that we're here and for you to spread the word. And the best thing you can do for Dr. Vibe and yourself is tell somebody what you learned today.
Yeah.
Or at least one person. At least one person.
Yeah. That's so important, because a lot of, and the fact is, I always say, the more you know, the more you need to know.
Yeah. And the more you know, the more you grow.
Absolutely. So Earl Anderson is saying amen. Fitnance IQ Camp says there's proof that people need to search properly to find these organizations, though. Any response? Okay, good stuff.
Yeah, so we have a media team as well, Convo Media, that are assisting us. They're assisting us in getting the word out. We were at AfroFest, we were at Caravana, et cetera, and we're going to be ramp up that awareness, especially now with the beginning of the school year. It's important. So look out for us, follow us on all of the social handles, et cetera, and stay in the loop and get involved.
So Back Business Live, where is this documentation found? The website's right there. It's right on your screen. Start there. And if you have any more questions, go deeper, reach out to them. We need to communicate with each other and get this word out. So Farley, as always, thank you for taking the time out of your positive, productive schedule to share with us today. We will be back with you. And you always have a home here.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right. Be well,
my brother, and good day
to all
your
be well. Keep the faith and remember to give yourself grace.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Take care. All right. A great conversation today. And there's, again, the contact information, student and family advocate program. There is their website address. I did put the website up a few times during the conversation today. So I hope Ryan is okay. I thought he would be joining us, but he didn't get a chance. But I hope I filled in well, because he's the real star, not me. I'm just a filler. So some things coming up. So first up, coming up on Monday's show, we have our monthly visit from Janice and Marie from Foodpreneur Lab, and they're going to be talking about food preservation and the many ways our food is preserved: drying, refrigeration, canning, jarring, etc. So that's coming up on Monday's show. Also, next Friday, we have our first Financial Fridays visit by Wayne Harris. So that's the two conversations that are happening next week. Let's see. Someone has a message here. Let's just see. Thank you so much, Dr. Tachi. Great show. And hey, talk about great shows. Dr. Tachi hosts a great show. By the way, Dr. Tachi, how did you survive the weather in Florida? Because I know you're located in Florida. I hope everything is okay. But Dr. Tachi hosts a great conversation called Media Scope. It's the livest live broadcast in regards to media, tech, and pop culture on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Instagram Live, and then on a whole bunch of platforms, 6 p.m. live on Wednesday, everything from YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's even broadcasts out of a station in the Bahamas. She everywhere. And Dr. Tachi, I have to reach out to get you on this platform so you can drop some knowledge about media, tech, and pop culture to the Morning Vibe audience. So that is it for today. A few quick things if you want to reach out to me. Those are all the different ways that you can. There's website, email, YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also putting out there, would you like to promote your business or service on our show? Please contact me. There's my email address, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. So that is it for today. I think I have one other thing I want to share with you. So let me just see if I can find it. If I can't find it, I ain't going to put it up there. So let's see if I can find it. Yes. You can watch replays of the Morning Vibe at the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and Facebook, Afro-Caribbean Business Network Facebook and YouTube, and the Ryan Oneil YouTube page. So, as always, we close out with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourself grace. And don't just manage your time, manage your energy. It is great to be back. We're just going to go strong right up to the end of the year. We got more guests coming up. We have 4 regular guests on monthly. We have Janice Marie for Foodpreneur Lab. We have Wayne Harris talking about financial. We have Ray McMillan talking about mortgage and real estate. All of them will be on next month. And our new edition next month, 2 weeks from today, we have Leslie McEwen, and she's going to come on monthly and talk about mental health, different aspects monthly. So we're really excited on all the things that we have for you. We want you to be better. So we want to help you and the family and the world be better. So God bless, peace, well, keep the faith, and walk good. We'll see you on Friday.